Hello.
Hello, Jordan. How are you?
Very well. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks so much for joining.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, how has the experience of playing with Mike again been?
Mike,
Was there any
yeah.
special chemistry that rekindled?
Mike who?
Mike Portnoy.
That name sounds so familiar to me. I'm gonna look it up. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's been awesome. Yeah, very familiar name. Um yeah, it's great. I mean, Mike and I have remained friends through all the years. And and of course we worked in liquid tension experiment together, and having him come back into our fold, if you will, is just feels very natural. And it's also been very exciting because there are certain elements that a lot of elements that he brings, with him, his, not only his, ability to play the drums beautifully, but also all the passion he has for all the aspects of, creating albums and conceptual thinking, and, and the fans. And there's a lot of wonderful things that we have, you know, as in store for everybody, like the album, the tour. And with him back in the band, I just feel like we're gonna have a lot of fun, and it's gonna be really awesome.
What does Mike bring differently to Dream Theater sound now compared to when he left?
Compared to what?
To when he left.
You Oh, to when he left?
Yeah.
You mean compared to Mike Mangini?
No, I mean compared to his previous stay on the band.
Got it. Okay. Well, I mean, it's a similar kind of thing from that point of view. I mean, he is who he is. If anything, he's more, as we all are, more mature and more grounded, and he's just able to bring, all the things that he cares about so deeply in a way that is just, maybe even more comfortable for the group as an entity than it was back, what it was 13 years ago.
And how has the working dynamic been since his return? I mean, in terms of rehearsal, songwriting.
Yeah. Well, I think with anything that Mike Portnoy does, he's very engaged. He's very passionate about it. He cares deeply. He's a part of it. He has opinions about things, whether it's about the music and the audio part of it, or if it's about anything that has to do with graphics or any element of the business, whether it's like, coming up with the set lists for the next tour. I mean, he's taking that, and there's so many things that he's good at in this business, and we are excited about having someone with those skills back in our lives. I mean, we were able to function beautifully, without him. And with Mike Mangini, we won a Grammy. We did really well. But it's such a pleasure to have Mike Portnoy back because of all his talents and his passion for everything that has to do with the music business.
At what stage
So, and
is
we welcome that, with open arms. We're totally all about it. Like, bring it on. Let's have a great time.
at what stage is the recording process of the new album?
Oh, we're doing well. I just finished my keyboard tracks. Actually, I was living in a hotel for about a month, doing all the keyboards, and then we were working on things like sound effects and all this cool stuff. And now James has got to do some vocals, and then it's got to be mixed and mastered and all the good things. So we're making good progress. I listened to, the album so far that doesn't have vocals on it yet, but I listened through to the other day, and I was like, oh my God, the fans are gonna love this. This is so cool. So we all have a really good feeling about it. We've been pouring our hearts into it and spending a lot of time crafting it.
Mike stated that the new album picks up right where Black Clouds and Silver Linings left off. Do you agree with him?
Wait, you broke up a little bit. Yeah, I heard you say that we picked up right after Black Clouds left off, and then what?
Do you agree with him?
Oh, he said that it picks up
Yeah,
right where we left off
yeah.
with that. Oh, I guess, yeah. I mean, where we left off with him. So now he's back, and so the energy is back to this kind of interesting core combination again, which I think there's really some magic there. Where it was good to in some ways it was good to get a break, because then when we come back together, it's like, wow, this chemistry, it really, really works. It's really fun. So that's where we're at.
The upcoming tour aims to celebrate the band's 40 years. How do you see the band's evolution over these 4 decades?
Wow. Well, like anything, it goes through a lot of changes. I think that my first thought about that is I remember when I joined the group, right? And the group had already been going for some time. That was back in 1999. And, my approach to music and to keyboard playing helped to kind of bring the band down a road they hadn't traveled on before, because of my kind of orchestrational approach and my classical background and the way that I played the piano and, things like that. So I think that we're a group that, not only has undergone some like member changes, but also it's a collection of people who are always learning and bringing what we learn into the next adventure. So we do an album, we put it out, we learn so much from the experience about the recording, the way that we recorded the instruments, whatever kind of, but for me, like if I use a certain kind of technology, maybe bringing new technology into the band, or like with John Petrucci, maybe he's studying a new technique on the guitar. We kind of always roll that into, the next phase of Dream Theater. So, I feel lucky that I'm with people who kind of are like that on the planet, where we're able to evolve and grow and interested in that process of reaching another level,
Brazil is on the tour route. What are some of your most memorable memories of playing in Brazil?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, I've got a lot of friends there. So it's always, a big event when we come to Brazil, just meeting all the people that I know and hanging out. So besides the music, besides the concerts, there's always a lot of social things that happen. And, I'm somebody who goes out. I try to go out and see the town. So I've walked and experienced all of them, that we've been to. And that's always memorable to me, but as far as like the Brazilian audiences go, some of the best Dream Theater fans on the planet Earth, so passionate, so into it, there's so much energy. We're just gonna have a great time there with this new. I know that there's a lot of anticipation, for our next tour, and we're thinking about it all the time, really working on it. And honestly, when I think about, all the places we go in the world, I haven't really even studied the full schedule yet, but I know we're coming to Brazil. It's one of the places where you go. There are places on the list that I'll find out the day before we get there, and I'm sure they're wonderful fans, but we're coming to Brazil, and that's like a big deal. So yeah, so there's definitely a relationship there.
I'd like to go down the memory lane for a while. How was it growing up in a musically inclined family and starting professional lessons so early?
You broke up a little bit. How is it? Ask me one more time.
How was it growing in a musically inclined family and starting taking lessons so early?
Yeah. So my family was not musical. I don't know.
No.
Well, you must have read something about that.
Okay.
No, nobody was a musician. No, nobody was a musician in my family. Um, my mother liked music. She went to concerts, but she didn't play an instrument. But I discovered the piano when I was 7 years old. I was in my second grade at school, and I would go to the piano and I would just play, and one day the teacher called up my mother and said, "Hey, Jordan is playing the piano so beautifully, and he's sorry, he's playing the piano so beautifully in the classroom. We really appreciate it. And my mother was like, what do you mean? We don't have a piano. So she was like, really? Well, you should get one because he already plays it. So yeah, so that's how it started. And then from there, I started to take lessons. And after about a year or so, my family realized that I had some talent, and they took me to a very serious music teacher who then prepared me to go to the Juilliard School of Music in New York City. And that's where I learned, that's where I was studying classical music and where I got the foundation for everything that I do, basically.
Leaving a prestigious program like Juilliard to pursue progressive rock was a bold decision. What motivated you to take that risk and follow your musical path?
So I was going to be a classical pianist, and from basically just completely focused on that from the age of like 9 until my eyes started to wander a little bit. My high school friends were starting to bring me like records in those days, like vinyl records of like Genesis and Pink Floyd, and somebody turned me on to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and that was it. Like for me, that was like, what's this? I never heard anybody playing the keyboards with that kind of power. So I was familiar with the kind of chords maybe that he was using, but I wasn't familiar with this kind of like strength, from a keyboard. So I thought, this is incredible. And I listened to that album over and over and over again. And in those days, I was preparing, of course, to go to college. And I had been going to the Juilliard Preparatory Division, the division that's for the younger people. To go to the college, you have to re-audition again, right? And so I was kind of like, oh, what do I do? Like, I'm interested in this other kind of music. But anyway, I ended up auditioning for Juilliard, and I got in, and then I got a pressure, really intense teacher. And she was like, you are going to emerge early in the classical music scene and be a famous concert pianist. Meanwhile, I was thinking about like my Mini Moog synthesizer, like the one I wanted. So after about 3/4 of a year or so, I left and I said, bye bye, I'm out of here. I wanted to go do my own thing. So that's kind of how it happened. I was really on the road to being a classical pianist. And then I had to go down a different road.
In the early 90s, you had the choice to join both the Dixie Dregs and Dream Theater. What made you initially choose the Dregs?
Yeah. So yeah, in those days, things were very different. I wasn't. Let's see, how do I explain this? So my wife and I, first of all, we just had a baby, so there was that part of it. There was also the part that I had a job. Basically, I was working with a synthesizer company called Kurzweil, and we paid like a regular kind of salary, and it was flexible and it was fine. And I also got offered a gig to play with the Dixie Dregs. But at the same point, Dream Theater asked me to join with them. Now, in those days, I didn't, Dream Theater, it was a different thing, right? They were just kind of, getting established, and I wasn't really sure of what kind of financial offering that they were going to make and how it related to everything. It seemed like they were going to go away for like months at a time. And there were, various parameters led me to think, well, I like them so much. They're really cool guys. They play so well. I like their music, but the baby, the job, I can play music anyway with the Dixie Dregs, who I was very familiar with. I was a fan of the Dixie Dregs. So I thought, you know what, guys? I'm sorry, I'll help you out with the one show that you really needed help with, which was the famous kind of like Concrete Music Foundation's event, which is on YouTube. You can see me playing with them back in those days. But I did one show, and then I said, I'm sorry, I can't really join the group. So that was that. And then, of course, a year or so later, I got a call from a manager guy who said, oh, Mike Portnoy wants you to join a quote unquote supergroup. So I thought, well, what the hell is a supergroup? So the supergroup, of course, turned out to be Liquid Tension Experiment. And So I thought, oh, this is great. Okay, well, I didn't join Dream Theater, but I'll get to work with these guys anyway. So for them, it was a side project, right? So we did the side project, and the first, album did very well, very successful instrumental album. And the second album we did was very successful as well, and we had a great time. Probably, I think Liquid Tension Experiment is probably among the most successful instrumental rock music ever made. So when we finished the second album, the guys said to me again, "Hey, Jordan, what do you think? Like, shall we look at, doing the Dream Theater thing?" And I was like, "Okay, guys, this is a good time to do it. Let's make it happen." So,
The, this week, a novel based on Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from Memory, was announced. With that in mind, what are some of your most memorable memories from recording an album?
yeah, it was a really fun album to create. First of all, the studio that we created it in was right kind of near where I live. So that was nice. I didn't have to travel too far to get there. And it was this old, very cool house and amazing setup, So, and it was my first time working with the guys. I thought that going from Liquid Tension Experiment to Dream Theater was going to be very similar, because really the only difference in my mind was that instead of a Asian long black-haired bass player, we had a tall bald guy, with playing bass, and I'd walk, it would be like somewhat similar. But I walked in and I realized that it was really a different thing, because the window of possibilities musically were very different, because Dream Theater already had kind of an established sound and audience, and so we had to work within this particular musical zone, which is large, but still, it's not Liquid Tension Experiment, where it's a soup of my style, Tony Levin style, Portnoy, Petrucci. This was more like, okay, now we're in Dream Theater, we're creating Dream Theater music. So that was, and I walked into that, and I remember I had like 50 ideas. Like I had so many ideas, like musical ideas, not full songs. I just had like, 8 measures of music here, 16 measures of music there. And I walked in and I told them about it. I remember Mike Portnoy said, wait a minute, but we write the music together. Like you can't, you don't, nobody just writes the stuff on their own. And but he wanted to hear all the ideas, because that's who he is. He wanted to hear every one of the ideas, right? So, it ended up that there was some things in there that they really liked, and we used some of those things. But it was a mixture of exciting and a learning process to learn how the guys work, and for them to learn how I work. I remember really orchestrating that album, like doing all kinds of parts, right? All kinds of things. And one day, like I think it was Mike or John said to me, "You know what? This is great stuff, but I don't know if we need that many parts." Like I probably had like strings and brass and woodwinds and horns and special effects, and somewhere those tracks exist from the original Scenes from a Memory, project. But so I had to learn what they really expected in this situation. So, but it was all good. I was having a good time. They were having a good time, and that's kind of how it all came about.
I have just two more questions for this interview.
Sure.
What do you think about the potential of AI in music creation?
Oh, you're going down that road.
Yeah.
Wow, that's brave. It's a brave road. Well, first of all, so I have a residency at MIT in Boston, which is the school college where AI was born. I mean, this is like, I'm working with the Media Labs. It's one of the most exciting technology facilities in the whole world. So I have a strong relationship with technology, as I'm sure you know. Let's what I focus on personally is AI as a tool, something that is a next level tool that can do things that we've never had happen before, things that are exciting, that make you think, that can enhance performance, that can enhance the way we create music in so many different ways. But we live now in a period of time where AI, as the latest and greatest, very powerful, almost out of control tool, is very threatening to a lot of people and a lot of artists too, where they feel like, oh my God, this is going to take my job, or, this is not a good thing. It's bad. What about the human being? So, as someone who's on both sides of it, somebody who plays the piano and the guitar and, all the instruments that I play, I feel it. I see, what people are thinking. I understand the fear, as there's fear with any brand new technology, especially one that's this powerful. But there's a few things I think. One is AI, the good things. One is that AI allows people to be involved with music that might have never been able to touch the musical experience before. You have companies like a Suno or an Udio. Just in the news the other day, I read that the big record companies are suing them. There's a whole lawsuit against these companies, these big AI music companies. But those companies, what they've done is they've created technology that allow people to get involved with the music creation process in a way that was never possible before. Like, you know, my wife, she sent me a piece that she put together using one of these applications for our 35th anniversary the other day. A really funny, really cool song all about our 35 years together. And it was with somebody singing and a whole band. It was like amazing. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And of course, it was done with Suno. So there's this joy that can happen. It was never possible before to do anything like that. It's how does that even work, right? You can't even imagine how it works. I don't know if you've tried any of these things, but it's nuts. So yeah, I get it. It's so amazing that there's a lot of fear. Like, oh my God, the AI is creating a song like with vocals, with guitars, with bass, with drums in 1 minute. That's scary, but it's also amazing, and it's also really fun. So we'll see what happens with the lawsuit thing. So because I think that you've got this technology that's going to make a lot of money and have a lot of power, and then you've got the record company representing the artists. We know how record companies work, but anyway, they're representing the artists supposedly, and they want, everybody wants a piece of this action, obviously. So, but let's talk about it a little bit from another perspective, which is me as an artist using AI. So I'm working with a team at MIT in figuring out a cool way to use AI in an integrated sense. So I can use it to like almost like jam with. I'm working on creating a model of my musical brain, so then I can sit down and like jam with my AI partner and have it not only generate its own ideas based on what I taught it, but also predict and react. So if it's doing something that I can play something and maybe go to a certain chord and it goes, oh, that chord. And it kind of says, I know, and it does what Jordan would do. So it's this whole thing where it's becoming this way to kind of almost extend what was ever possible before. And it's really fun. And I think it'll be really entertaining for an audience and really educational and kind of like next level stuff. So I have a lot of thoughts about it. And this is a tremendous topic, which is worth thinking about. But I think that one of my messages, I guess, at this point is people should get beyond just the fear part of it and realize that, yes, everybody, when brand new technology comes out, there's always, this kind of feeling, but it's not going away, and it's really powerful, and it can be really fun and really cool. So you might as well be starting to think about how to use it and enjoy it and just go with the ride.
And as for my last question, do you have any solo projects or collaborations with other artists in the works?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that. So I just about a week ago, I announced my new solo album. It's called Permission to Fly. It's coming out on Inside Out Sony, same label as Dream Theater, and it's I just released one of the songs on video a few days ago as well. It's called The Alchemist, which is available to see on YouTube, and it's a follow-up really to my Wired for Madness album. It's very progressive rock, touches of metal, the music out of my crazy musical brain. It features vocalist Joe Payne and drummer Darby Todd, and also a guitarist whose name is Steve Dedeyan, and a very amazing Chilean young guitar player who I found, whose name is Bastian Martinez. So yeah, really excited about the album. Of course, these things take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of passion. And I think it'll be something really fun for Dream Theater fans to listen to while they wait for the new Dream Theater album to come out.
Will the new Dream Theater album come this year?
I haven't heard a definite release date for it yet, but I think it probably will come after the new year.
So thanks a lot, Jordan, for this conversation. Hope you enjoyed as much as I did.
I did, my friend. All right. We'll see you in Brazil, right?
See you in Brazil. Thank you so much.
Okay. See you there. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Ciao.